I'm Alan. I'm the product manager for Zoho DataPrep, and we'll have a deep dive session into Zoho DataPrep, and we'll probably introduce the latest features of Zoho DataPrep as well. This is today's agenda. So we'll go over the need for data preparation. Why would you need a data prep tool? We'll introduce you to Zoho DataPrep. I'm sure some of you are new to this. We'll give you a sneak peek of our 2.0 release that we are going to do a beta launch real soon. And then we'll jump into the product demo. So let's get started. So what we believe is success in the business landscape today is increasingly dependent on a good data strategy, right? I think most of you would agree. And what is the challenge when it comes to a good data strategy or a good data culture within your company? But these are some of the challenges that you might face. First is poor data quality, right? So what is poor data quality? This is when you have invalid, inconsistent, or just missing data. So invalid is when you have junk emails, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as phone numbers, and so on. And when you have country names like US, United States, UK and United Kingdom, spelling mistakes in the country names or company names, this is what we call inconsistent or non-standardized data, right? So all of these will mess up your reports, and you'll have to go back into the data, prepare it, standardize it, and then build your dashboards, right? So this is a huge challenge when it comes to having clean data, having good reports, and a good analytics, right? Another thing is scale and flexibility. Business needs are growing, and it's not really easy to keep up with traditional tools like Excel to modify into new business practices, new data sources, and new data pipelines, right? So you need a tool that can handle all of these changes that are happening within your business. And the third thing is just disorganized data. So this is what we call as data in multiple different formats. You have multiple business application data coming in from various different sources. One can be from a database, one can be from an application in a JSON format. An analyst might share you his thoughts in an Excel sheet. You might receive compliance information or regulatory information with CSV format. So all of these different formats don't really talk to each other. You'll have to ingest them, kind of consolidate them into a single particular workspace or a data set, and then build your charts or reports. And this is, again, a complex task where you need a particular tool to handle your data, right? And the last is compliance problems, right? So if you don't have a good governance, good control over the data, if you're not treating your PIs properly, if you're not masking them properly, you might run into compliance issues, right? So you need to make sure that the data that you process is not opened up to someone who shouldn't have access to it. And this is something that data prep tool can help fix, right? So with these challenges in place, and these are not the only challenges that you might face, right? There are so many different challenges that you might have. So a data prep tool will solve most of these problems, right? So with having a data prep tool, first and foremost thing is you have accurate insights, right? With accurate insights, you get better decision making, and you can trust your system a lot better with having good data, right? And the next important thing is when you have disparate data sources, we have a variety of different data sources. A data prep tool can bring all of those data sources together, process it in a way that is useful to you, push it into a data warehouse or an analytics tool where I can make sense of that data. And when you build all of these data pipelines, it's not a manual process. Any data prep tool, including Zoho Data Prep, will help you automate these data pipelines. You bring data from somewhere, clean it, transform it, push it into a data warehouse, and you schedule it to run on a daily basis, weekly basis, depending on the need, right? And the last thing is you can mask your personal data information, make sure that doesn't cross the data boundaries that you have set up for your organization. If let's say you're opening up the data for some analyst, make sure you anonymize personalized data or remove it entirely so that they don't have information about the customers that you might have or the personal details of those customers, right? You can anonymize that data or even aggregate it so that they don't get individualized records, right? So with that said, let's jump into what data prep is. So data prep brings data from multiple different sources. You can clean the data, you can transform it, you can enrich it, you can then catalog that information and push it to various different destinations. It can be to an analytics tool, It can be to a data warehouse like Amazon Redshift, Snowflake, or cloud databases like RDS, Azure. You can also use this to prepare data for your machine learning models as well. So make sure the data is clean, your features are consolidated, and you fill up missing values in your data and then push it there. And you can also use this to set up data pipelines from business applications. Let's say you want to clean up data from your Zoho CRM account. You can import that here, deduplicate, remove some values, mass edit, and then push it back to CRM. If you want to set up a sync, let's say, take data from somewhere, clean it up, push it into CRM as leads, you can do that too, right? So data pipelines are basically universal. You can use it anywhere. This is where we introduce Zoho DataPrep 2.0 beta. Let me just quickly play a video before we jump into the key updates. All right.
Doing your video. Taking your own man. Hit go out the runner. How you doing it? I tied on it.
So with the 2.0, we are launching what we call as the visual pipeline builder. So where you can build these data pipelines with a visual interface. I'll just quickly call up these items and then jump into the demo so that I can show you in real time, right? And we have unified the schedules. In 1.0, what we had was separate import and export schedules. Now with the complete pipeline interface, you can schedule the import, transform, and export process as a single pipeline. We have templates so that it makes replicating the pipeline across workspaces much easier. We have automatic versioning. Each change that you make to the data set or the data pipeline is automatically tracked. You have unlimited undo, so you can always jump back into which version that works best for you. We have universal incremental fetch. So we have extended the incremental fetch capability not only for databases, but also for files from cloud storage solutions, right? And whenever you run a pipeline job, it is tracked as a separate job. Each has its summary. We have stage-wise tracking of progress and error statuses. So you have much more granular information for debugging your data pipelines. And with automatic versioning, we also have staging and production environments. Let's say you have a pipeline that's already scheduled. Any changes that you make to that pipeline will not affect the scheduled processes, but will be done in a separate sandbox environment. And when you're ready to with the pipeline version, you can publish it as a live version, right? So that's when the new changes are taken up. And we have introduced a new homepage dashboard wherein you can monitor all the jobs that are running in the new system. You can see the scheduled pipelines list, latest statuses, how many jobs were successful, how many failed today, and across different periods of time as well. And later in the beta period, we are also adding a lot more connectors to the system. So we are catching up with analytics in terms of data connectivity, and we'll also have Zoho Flow integration coming up, which will give you a lot more flexibility in terms of orchestrating the data pipelines, triggering it from various different events, and so on, right? So let's just jump into the demo. So this is our homepage. So where we can see the dashboard. So it is showing you all the different metrics that you might want to see from a data pipeline perspective, right? So how many total data pipelines were there, how many are scheduled, how many workspaces that you're working with, how many total jobs ran today, how many were successful, how many failed. Today was a good day. I think all 3 jobs were successful. And you can also see overall trend. So you can change the period of chart that you're seeing here. So if you want to see it across a week, across this week, last week, and so on, you can change that. So it has been a good week. We had just 1 failure and I think 4 failures on one particular day, but then rest were all good, right? So you can also see the overall distribution of the amount of jobs that were successful versus failure and all that. And then you have the recent pipelines, the jobs that were run today, the recent jobs that were run, recent workspaces that I opened, scheduled pipelines. So this will give you quick access to the pipelines that you're working on, right? So let's jump into the pipeline interface or the pipeline list, where this is all organized into the different projects that you might be working on. So let me show you a couple of examples before I actually jump into showing you how to create a pipeline, right? So here is a typical pipeline. We'll start from scratch to build this, right? So I'm taking data from different sources. We take data from different sources. Like let's say we are collected data from separate events, one in the US, one in the EU. We can take that data, clean it up in these stages. We append them together, merge them, clean them up, and then push it into Zoho CRM. And we have also another survey data set that we taken up. We clean that up and push it into Zoho Analytics, right? So all of this can be scheduled as part of a single pipeline. We have the schedule process here where we can manage the different schedules. It can be hourly, daily. There's a lot more flexibility in terms of how much you can schedule. Let's say you want to run this every Sunday and Wednesday. You can do that, and you can also set the time in which it gets executed, right? And we can set up incremental fetch as well. So let me cover all of these when we go into the demo workspace, right? So let me start working with this. So when you start to create a pipeline, so the page, what you will get is a blank page where you can add your data sets or add your data sources to the pipeline, right? So to add data sets, you can just click on the green button on the top with the plus icon, and these are the data sources that we are working with, right? So this is a similar list to what you would have seen in the previous session. You have your basic data sources files. It can be from a URL. It can be from an FTP server. It can be from an FTP server that's on premises. You can be using Databricks. We can fetch those in to the cloud service. You can fetch data from cloud storage services like Google Drive, OneDrive, even Amazon S3 for that matter. And you can also pull data from local databases, like something that's installed on your local intranet, right? And anything that is JDBC compliant, we can take data from. So it doesn't have to be on the list. As long as you have JDBC drivers for that, we can fetch data from those databases. And when it comes to cloud databases, again, we have direct connectivity to all of these. But again, as long as it supports JDBC drivers, we can fetch using this other cloud services option. And we can also import data from a variety of different Zoho applications as well as third-party applications. We are expanding this list. So right now we can import data from Analytics, CRM, and Creator, but we will add a lot more pretty soon. So once we brought in data from these sources, this is how it will look. So let's say you brought in an Excel file. So this is the data source, and this is the stage in which the data gets processed. We can start preparing the data by either right-clicking on the data to open up the options. So here we have the prepare data option, which will take us to the DataPrep Studio, which I'll show in just a minute. You can join data together. You can append data sets together, which is basically a SQL union. You can pivot the data set to a different format, basically transfers the data or perform aggregate operations. And then you can also unpivot the data set. Let's say you have pivoted data in an Excel sheet, and if you want to combine all those columns into rows, you can do that as well from here. And if you want to do any sort of in-data set operations like split, find and replace, all of those typical operations, you can just perform it from our Studio interface. So let's just jump into that. You can also just double-click on this icon to jump into the Studio interface as well. So this is our DataPrep Studio interface. So where we have the data shown in rows and columns, right? So let me just introduce the interface to you. So here we have the overall dataset quality. So we have this quality as 88%. We can go into the dataset details to have much more detail. So 87% of it's valid. There's some invalid data there, 1.2%, and there's a bunch of missing data as well. So, and we show the data quality information on top of each column as well. So if you see here, this is what you also see on top of each column, right? So this is a dataset data quality bar. So this gives you an opportunity to identify which column has invalid information. So we can just scroll through and identify that the email column has the most invalid information, and that is where we need to focus on to kind of start our data cleansing journey, right? And when it comes to the data distribution chart, you can also see that below the column header. So this will basically break it into different buckets for numerical values and say how many values are there for discrete values, like Samsung. This is the most common company that we have the leads from. So you can just at a glance get the data distribution as well from this page. So let's get started with the data cleaning process, right? So let's start from the email column, which seems to have the data quality issue. Yeah. So what we have here is an opportunity to clean the data, right? So unlike analytics where you'll have to create columns or formula columns or write queries, you don't have to do any of that here. So you can just start by selecting the text that you want to remove, and that will trigger an analysis of the application, and it will say, what do you want to do with the selection? Do you want to extract the selection into a new column? Do you want to replace the values? Do you want to count the number of values that are selected? Do you want to split it based on the value? So in this particular case, I want to split it. I want to replace the value with nothing. So, and as soon as I select one of those suggestions, it is automatically giving me an output preview, right? And the green column is what we call as a live preview. So here, as you can see, the mail to prefix is causing the problem, and I've selected that. And the replace suggestion just shows me that prefix has been removed, right? So, and I'm just going to apply. So this is way easier than even a find and replace operation that you would do on another application, right? So just select what you want and then split it based on that, right? And this is not just for selecting or replacing. So let's say I want to split this information, for example, by the @ symbol, and it automatically understands that this is a delimiter, and it is suggesting split, transform instead of extract, and it's splitting it into two, so I can get the domain information just like that. I can do it again by just selecting the Samsung.com, and it will know that I'm trying to extract it, and it's going to extract that. I can also give it another example so that it doesn't get confused. So yeah, so I can train this text selection to kind of understand the context of the selection much more by doing multiple selections as well. And this is the default method in which you would interact with DataPrep, right? So this is, you can use this to do all sorts of cleanup from the dataset. I still see some invalid values here, and I can also use this dataset quality bar to filter the data. So I can bubble up the invalid values that are in the dataset to the forefront so that I can deal with those invalid values. So here I filtered based on the invalid values, and I can see that these are basically junk values that I don't need at all. This is not something that I can recover. In the previous example, we had the mail to prefix, and we can just remove that to make the emails valid, but this is not useful at all. So what I can do here is I can just go ahead and delete these rows so that I can clean up the data quality of this particular data set. So you can fix the data quality problems or get rid of them. So yeah, so now we can see that the data quality of this particular data set it has improved. We have 0% invalid data now, and this chart keeps getting updated. So whenever you perform a transform, the data quality gets improved, and you can keep a watch over this to know the state of your progress. Are you making progress in removing these invalid values? So here we've removed basically the invalid values from the data set, but we still have a bunch of missing data that we have to deal with. So let's go across the column, across the data sets, and find out if we need to do something else. So here, just by moving around, I can see that the country names are not very, very consistent, right? So I have US here, USA here, U.S.A here. this is going to mess up my report. I'll have three different, columns for three different bars for a country column for USA. I don't want this. I want to consolidate this into a single value. I can click on this column to get more column details. I can see a detailed histogram here, where I can also go in and edit the value. So I can just click edit here and find and replace all the values from here as well. But I can also do something called cluster and merge. So here, let me go and choose this operation. What it does is basically analyzes that column, finds out similar values with slight spelling errors, and then unifies into a single value. So here in this case, let me just give it a common value to replace it with. So all of these different variants of US, all of these different variants of UK are going to be consolidated into a single value. This is the algorithm that is run to kind of identify all these different variants. So let's click apply and make these changes live, right? So once we've done that, we can see that these changes are live in this column, right? So as soon as we make changes, we can see that a rule gets added to the system. So this is what keeps track of all the different transformations that are performed by you in this particular data set. So this is what you can use to jump back to a certain point. You can also go in and edit it. Let's say you want to change this rule, and you can just jump back into the rule set transform, replace transform, and change the values in the transform panel and make these changes. So this allows you complete flexibility over when you want to change the data, how you want to manage this data pipelines, and so on. So let's look at another opportunity to improve the data quality. So here we have the company website, which has a lot of empty values, right? So it has basically 50% empty values. Let's see if we can improve or fill it up with something, right? So I can just scroll along and see that we have email column, which has the domain information. So we can probably take that domain information part of the email and fill it up into the website column, which is probably going to be the same for business users at least. So let's do that. So like I showed you, I can use the text selection to extract these things. But I want to showcase another way to do this, right? So let me cancel the suggestion, go into the transforms menu and select transform by example. So this is a transform that is powered by OpenAI. So let me say samsung.com, and I'm going to give it an example of the output that I want from the column. And it is going to understand what I say and write a formula for me to extract that information out of the column. You can describe the logic and get the output by doing this. But in DataPrep, you can also just give it an output as an example, and DataPrep will figure out the formula that is needed to actually make that transform happen. So as you can see, we've shown you a quick preview of what the output is going to be and the formula that is used to actually generate that output. It is not a black box. You know what is happening here. And let's say you don't like this formula that ChatGPT generated, you can always go back and customize the formula, add conditions to it. Here I'm okay with this. I'm going to click apply. And the kicker is even the column name gets filled automatically, right? So it understood what the context is. I'm typing the domain and it filled the column name as domain as well. So here I can use this column to fill in the company website, but I don't want gmail.com to be a company website, right? So I don't want those values to be part of the website column. So I have to basically differentiate between the websites that are actually, business websites, and then there are public domains of the emails that I want to skip. So let me go ahead and do that. I can create a bucket here. So basically this will create groupings of various things. So I can give the default as business, because I guess the public ones will be less. So I can say public, I can say gmail.com. I can give it multiple examples. So for the sake of the demo, I'll keep it short. So as soon as I do this, as soon as I type here, the preview gets updated. So this is how you keep the momentum going. You don't have to do all the configurations, click apply, preview, and see what it's going to do. You can just do it as soon as you're typing, right? So you can move at the speed of thought. So I can just say domain type and click apply, so that I can categorize these domains into either business or public domains, right? So this transform will create that new column, and we can use that new column to kind of filter the data and then use that domains alone to fill empty cells within. So I can use the data distribution on top to actually filter the data. So I can just click on a particular bar, and this is going to filter the data and show only the business domain types. The filter is applied, the domain type is business. Again, it shows me the default options for a filter, so I can keep, delete, advanced notes, and so on. But in this case, I want to do another transform on the filtered rows, right? So I go on to the company website column, I right click, get to the transforms that are available. Here I want to go with the fill empty cells transform. Here I have various options to fill empty cells. I can use previous cell value, next cell value, most frequent value. These are options that are useful when you're working with a numerical column, right? So in this particular case, this is just a website information. I can also fill it with something like not available or something, but I can use the value of another column to fill the value here. So I'll use a formula, and in the formula, I have the two options similar to what we saw in analytics, where we can insert functions and insert columns. So I'm just going to insert the value of another column into here. So I'm going to choose the domain as the value, and every transform in DataPrep also has filtered transform capability, right? So you can apply transform only on top of a filtered data set. So the filter that we applied previously got carried over here in the filter tab of the transform panel itself. So we can see the domain type is the column that we filtered on. The wildcard filter is applied, and this is the criteria that we have applied for that column. So now that we apply, it will show you a confirmation that only the filter rows will be applied. I can just click OK to fill the domain values into the company website. So we just filled up that company column. So we have a lot less empty values in the company website. And the data quality, you can see it is improved from somewhere around 80% to 95%, right? And again, we don't have any invalid data. I think we are good to go. So another important data quality issues are what we call duplicates, right? So we don't want any duplicates in our system, especially when it comes to leads. So what we can do here is choose an email column, go into transform, where we can, find duplicates in the system. So I can see a duplicate based on the email column, just keep it with automatic, where it picks what rows to keep automatically. So here it found 7 duplicates. It is grouping the various duplicate emails in the system with different color codes, and it is highlighting the record that is to be removed in red, right? So we can also change the criteria to manual. So let's say I want to keep the lead that was collected the latest, and keep that, and everything that was collected before we can probably remove. So I can use this, and I can update the criteria. You can see the red highlight changing to the first row as we've changed the criteria. 10. And we can, kind of control what rows are kept and what rows are removed when we are dealing with duplicate values, right? And I'm going to click apply to apply the changes and add it to the rule set. So this is one of the ways we can clean up the data within the system, right? I want to again go back into the rule set. I can say we can rearrange the rule set in case we want the rule to happen in a certain order. We can also save this rule set as a template. So let me just do that and apply it on top of another data set. So let me say leads prep. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to jump into the pipeline. And we have another data set from EU, right? The leads from EU. These also probably need to be cleaned up. And I don't have to write the rules from scratch. I can just go into the rule set area, import the rule set that I just created, demo workspace, and leads prep. So I can choose the rule set template, and you can use rule sets from across workspaces. It doesn't have to be in the same workspace at all, and just click to import. All of the rules that we just created, we can be applied on top of any data set that has a similar data structure, right? As long as the columns are same, you can just apply the rule set. In case you have a slightly different column, the rules will still get imported, but some of them might have an error. You can always go back, edit it, and remap it to the proper column that is within your data set, And if it's not a column that you have, you can also remove that rule as per your need. So this is how we can reuse the rule set within the system, right? So now we have basically cleaned up 2 data sets that we wanted to do. Let's merge these together, right? So let's use the append transform. And the domain and domain type is not something that I want anymore. I'm going to drop that off during this. Let me just name this combined leads. And I'm going to click append to kind of merge these 2 data sets together so that I can then process that and export it into CRM. While it gets appended, all of the columns are automatically mapped here because they have the same name, right? In case they are not, we can also choose that from the drop downs that are available in the screen. So let's open up this particular data set and make sure everything is good and rosy before we export what? We have some invalid data. We didn't have any invalid data in the previous 2 data sets, right? So let's look into what is causing those errors, right? We can again scroll into the column that is having the invalid data. So this collected time is causing the problem. Let's just scroll down and see what the problem is. Oh yeah, we have date in 2 different formats. Yeah, this is a common problem. So we have a pre-built transformation to deal with this, right? So we have this unified date format transform, which identifies all the different formats that are part of the column. It automatically identifies what the format is and then merges those together. So in this case, all formats in this slash is based on basically month, day, and year. And here it is not identified properly. So I can also give it month, day, year. So this is the correct format and no slash at the end. And I can just unify it to a common format in the bottom. So I can, again, since we are here, we'll go with month, day, and year as the proper format to go with. And all of these different formats can then be quickly consolidated into a single format without losing any data. Let's say you import this data into analytics or any other application, you will lose all the data values, right? So we can fix this obviously within DataPrep, right? So now, again, we're good with the data quality. It's 92%, no invalid data. We are good to export this into CRM. So to do that, we can jump into the pipeline or just add a destination from here. And so I can just go into combine data, add destination. And these are all the different destinations that we support right now. So you can export it as a file. You can export it to FTP servers. You can export to cloud storage solutions like Google Drive, OneDrive, and so on. You can also export it to cloud databases like RDS, Redshift, so where you can, warehouse the data. And you can also export to applications like Analytics, CRM, Creator, and so on. So here in this case, I can go into CRM. I can choose the organization where I want to export to. I can choose the modules, leads, right, or Zoho leads for this matter. I can choose to add only the new records. In case I imported this data from CRM, I would have the lead ID, right? So in that case, I can also choose to update existing records as well as do both, right? And I can base this on the lead ID or the email column and then click save. This will basically add the destination within this particular stage and create this pipeline. This is nice and neat, and we can then run it to actually import the data, process the data, and export in one single shot. So this is what we talk about when we say creating these pipelines. So similar to the rule set which tracks all of the different transforms that we performed, we also have a version history here where we track all of the different changes that were performed. So we added data sets, we made some changes to the rules, we created destinations to Zoho CRM. Yeah, all of that gets tracked. And since all of this is still in the development progress, we have marked it as draft version, right? So you can go ahead and mark it as ready to make this as a live version and then schedule it. So any change you make after doing this live version, let's say I remove this destination, for example, all of that change is going into the draft version. The live version that you published and that you scheduled will not get affected. Let's say you publish it to live and set up a schedule and you make changes to the pipeline, your schedule process will not get affected. So it's an important way to actually work on the same pipeline without actually affecting your production data pipelines. This is a key way where you can set up, sandbox and production environments within data pipelines. So jumping back to the list of data pipelines here, so you can see the pipelines as the schedules active. So in this particular case, I want to also talk about how we set up incremental fetch, right? So this has schedule active already. So let me go into the edit schedule option and to show you how we configure incremental fetch. So there are datasets coming in from databases, cloud storage solutions, and again, another database. So in this case, I can choose to import all data, in which case the entire table data gets imported and then processed in export. This is not typically what you want, right? You want to only process the data that got into the system over the last day or the last hour or so on. So here you can choose to do that with this option, right? To only modified and new data. And you can also enter which column you want to fetch this new data by. So if you go into the modified column, you can choose that here and say, fetch only the data that's been modified over the last, after the last schedule run was successful, right? So it will take just the new data and then process it and export it, right? And this is also possible with files, right? This is something that is very unique to DataPrep. So wherein we can actually set up incremental fetch for files. Let's say you have a cloud storage drive where you add a file every day for each day's value. You can set up incremental file fetch there, and you can say what is the file to import. You can also set up to have multiple files that get merged together and then package them together, or you can just pick the newest file, and this can be based on modified time or created time for that matter. So this is how we set up import incremental fetch within the DataPrep system. So with that said, I think we are at the end of the demo session. Thank you.